Okay, in this video we're going to look at how to add the banner and then add the title text that sits over the top of the banner. So the banner in our web page is just an image, and you can create banners in Photoshop or anything like that. It just happens that I'm going to be using an actual photo for my banner. So the first thing I need to do is select the banner div itself. So I'm just going to click on it. There's no need to double click into it, you just need to select the banner div. Once you've done that, you can go to the insert panel window and say you want to insert your image or your graphic. We want it to nest, so we want it to sit inside the actual banner div itself, so we need to choose the nest option here, and then you just need to browse for your image that you're going to use for your banner. Now in my case that's inside my root folder and then my images folder, and I've got a file called tiger, which I'm just going to click and it will go into my banner div. Now this image was pre-sized in Photoshop so that it was the same width as the actual wrapper div. So I want it to be the width of my web page that I'm going to be creating. And you can see the height here is set to 540. When you select the image, you can see all the options and properties for that image, such as setting the alternative text, the title, the width and height, the source of the image, and if you want to hyperlink it as well. You can also come here to this little menu option and set the same properties, so the source, the title, the alternative text and the link, and the width and the height again. The only thing you have to do is just make sure you've got the image selected to see both of these options available to you. Okay, one other thing with this as well is that we've still got the placeholder text sitting inside of that banner div. So we had some text in there to identify the div, and that was called banner. We now need to remove that. We don't want it anymore, we just want the image to be our banner. So I'm going to double click to highlight that text, and I'm just going to backspace to delete it out, so it just leaves the image without the placeholder text. Okay, the next thing we want to do is put a title over here. So to do that we need to add another div which is inside the banner div. So I'm going to come back here, make sure I've got the banner div selected. So I'm going to pick up the banner div, go to insert again under HTML, click to add a div, and I want it to nest inside the banner div. So I want it to sit inside of the banner div alongside the image. It places at the top. I need to give it a unique identifier because it's a div, so I'm going to call it title and press return, and return again to save it into my external style sheet. Okay, I'm just going to double click in there and change that to say our title, which is Life on Earth, and again just click off anywhere to apply that. Now at the moment you can see that this div sits at the top of our image, and we actually want the div to move down and be somewhere around about here. Well, let's just quickly go to code view because I want to show you just something very quickly. I'm just going to do a return here to replace the closing div tag of the banner div just below the image. So if I click to highlight my banner div, you can see that the image is nested inside the banner div and our title div is nested inside the banner div. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear how the structure was in the code. Okay, to position this div I need to make sure that I open up my CSS designer panel window. Working on my external style sheet, I should see here the title ID that I gave to that div. If I don't see it here, you can always create it by choosing plus and then typing it in. And then I need to come to the layout option here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and I'm going to say to that div that its position needs to be absolute. So just under the padding options you've got position, and you've got 4 options for changing the positioning of a div. I'm going to set it to be absolute. And what that's done is it's just moved that div over the top of the image. You can't see it anymore because the text is black there, so I'm just going to quickly go to the text CSS properties and change the text color from default black to white. Press return to enter that, so you can now clearly see where our title is. Coming back to layout, I can now position. Now it's absolutely set. Using these 4 values here, top, left, bottom and right, I can click, choose pixels as my measurement, and then placing my mouse cursor right on the 0, I've got these 2 little arrows that appear, which means I can drag my mouse left and right and it will move the div up and down. So over here you can see this moving as I click and drag here, so I can change the position from the top and move it down, and then come over to the left as well, set that to PX as well, and then again move it across onto the page. So I'm just going to move it down a bit further, and there you go, there goes in my text. Just going to come back to the text options here because I just want to change the font size. Just going to click here choose EMs as my measurements, and I think probably 2.5 EMs, actually maybe 3 EMs will do for the moment for my title. If I don't like the positioning, I can always come back and play around with these options here to reposition it and move it across. Okay, so you may think that's all you need to do is create a div which is nested inside of your banner for in this example, change its position to absolute, and then just use these top and left options. But however, let's go and preview in the browser and see what happens. So if I preview in Safari and save that and save the style sheet, you'll see it doesn't position where we expected it to be. So it doesn't look the same as it does in Dreamweaver. So if I move the screen size, so if I change the width of the browser, you'll see, hold on a minute, everything moves. So my image and my text here move, but my title doesn't. And that's because my title is absolutely fixed on the page. In other words, it's pinned in place. And we need to change that. We set it to be absolute, but it's absolutely positioned to the actual page itself, not to my banner div. So I'm going to come back to Dreamweaver, and what I need to do now is select my banner. So I'm going to come over here to my CSS designer, go to the banner div here. So this selects the banner div and allows us to write some CSS rules for the banner. And I need to change the position of the banner div here to be relative. So when I make the banner div relative, what happens is that any divs that are nested inside it and are absolutely positioned are now positioned to the edges of this div. Before, this title div was positioned relative to the edge of the page. Now it's positioned relative to the edges of the banner div. So it's very important that when you set your nested div to be absolutely positioned, you realize that it is absolutely positioned to the page edges. By setting the div it's nested into to be relative, it becomes absolutely positioned to the edges of the div that it's nested in. So now if I go back here, I just need to make a few more changes to my positioning because I don't quite like how it is now. Making sure that we are working on the title. There we go, I'm just going to move that back. In fact, what you'll see now is if I set that to be 0px, it should sit right on the edge of this div. Whereas previously, if it was set to 0px, it would have sat on the edge of the page. Okay, so let's just change that to, let's put in there, say for example 100. There we go. Now when we preview in a browser window, it should be in the position that we see it in Dreamweaver. And if we were to resize our browser window, it moves relative to the rest of the content on the page. So that's a neat way to add a banner into your banner div. So that's just a graphical image into your banner div, and then how you can add another div and get it positioned where you want it to be within your banner.